Something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent.
Come on, man.
We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
And welcome to it as we kick off another brand new broadcast day here from Washington, D.C. Glad to have you on board as we fight for you from the foxhole of freedom. No bigger foxhole than what I'm sitting in here, of course, in the nation's capital. We've got three big things to get to today, so let's get started. Here's number one. Another big day on Wall Street. Seems like everything's up. Stocks, bonds, gold, crypto. If you've got it, it's probably worth more today. Number two. The war of words over the war on narco-terrorists is continuing to escalate. It looks like Democrats only care about knocking out Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War. That's their target. And number three, President Trump declaring every document signed by former President Joe Biden's Autopen null and void. You probably heard this, but let's dig into it, shall we? It's an important comment. His Truth Social post reads, quote, any and all documents, proclamations, executive orders, memorandums, or contracts signed by order of the now infamous and unauthorized Autopen within the administration of Joseph R. Biden Jr. are hereby null, void, and have no further force or effect. Anyone receiving pardons, commutations, or any other legal documents so signed, please be advised that said document has been fully and completely terminated and is of no legal effect. Now, this is something that Trump has been hinting at doing since Biden's Autopen use first came into question. Trump has long believed, as have many, that Joe Biden was asleep at the wheel, and he said so publicly. Here's an example.
He wasn't in charge. The people around the desk were in charge. The Autopen was in charge. It's a very complicated thing if you're going to use the machine. You have to do it properly. And he didn't have any idea what was happening. And this is what we had as a president. We don't want that. And while Biden was president, if he was president, I think the Autopen was president, not Biden. But it was really the people that told the person that operated the Autopen what to do. Those are the people that really were president, okay?
Now, as you probably remember, Joe Biden preemptively pardoned thousands of criminals, including multiple members of his family, Mark Milley, Anthony Fauci, all the members of the January 6th investigative panel, and the list goes on and on. But to say that Joe Biden pardoned them is a stretch because we know those pardons were signed for and with the Autopen. We don't know if Biden was even aware of it. We don't. The House Oversight Committee has been digging into this for the better half of the year. And Congressman James Comer says there were never any meetings scheduled for President Biden to review the pardon applications. Listen to this.
Not only did we depose the Biden inner circle, we also got the calendar, the emails. There were never any meetings scheduled for President Biden to review the pardon applicants. There was never a press conference by Joe Biden to explain what the executive order was or who he pardoned and why. There was no evidence that Joe Biden was involved. And what we did find was that this inner circle shielded President Biden not only from the American people, but from his own administration. So it's about the cognitive decline of Joe Biden, the fact that his inner circle covered it up, and there was no evidence that he was involved in the decision-making process, and thus that's why they used the Autopen so many times on legal documents, even when Merrick Garland's Department of Justice told him not to.
They said, don't do that. You can't do that. It's not legal. They did it anyway. In closed-door testimony, several senior aides to the former president, like Democrat operative Neera Tanden, told the committee they're not entirely sure who gave the final approval on a whole host of documents that were signed by the Autopen. They don't know. Now, Neera Tanden enjoys a cushy consulting job, shows up for hits on her favorite networks where she blasts President Trump for his abilities. The hypocrisy couldn't be more obvious. At least Scott Jennings isn't taking it. At least CNN has one honest person on the air, who I enjoy. Here he is.
If he's so capable.
I'm just saying.
I mean,
you guys
I don't
are
know if
upset
you're
that
judge.
Trump,
If you're a judge
is exhibiting some, I want to get more facts, and I'm going to be lectured by the people who lied to the American people about the condition of the president.
Oh my God!
No way.
No, but
not going to take it.
That's first of all, that's outrageous.
Is
That's
it?
outrageous. Yes, it is.
You think the truth was told? You think
the
truth was told?
I will say.
Did the White House tell the truth?
I will look forward to this discussion.
Do you all believe the truth was told about Biden?
Scott, do you want government or do you want your lick back?
Because even if all of that happened in the past, we're in the present now. So we need a president that is capable.
And so what? He said, I don't know. What, did it hurt your life that he said, I don't know? One time?
Biden did it. Biden did it.
Sure,
Biden
I
did
can.
it. You
Of
cannot
course I
write
can.
that for 4 years.
I absolutely
and expect
can.
the country to move forward.
I 100% can.
You cannot.
Biden wrote it for 4 years on Trump, and Obama wrote it for 8 years on George W. Bush. You're damn right. We were right here.
Yeah, you're damn right. It's funny how the whole group gets all rabid. Their hair catches fire. Whew. Because you've been caught. Many of the other senior aides during congressional testimony also took the Fifth Amendment. Maybe most notably, as you'll remember, Joe Biden's doctor refused to answer any question at all related to the president's mental and physical ability. He took the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times. Yeah, watch.
On the advice of counsel, I must respectfully decline to answer based on the physician-patient privilege and reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. I am not a lawyer, and I must follow my lawyer's advice in this matter.
So, gentlemen, we intend to assert both privileges with regard to any questions that would be asked at this deposition. And Dr. O'Connor will not answer any questions.
Can we go off the record for 1 second?
There you have it. He's not going to answer any questions, none, about Joe Biden's health. Why? He would incriminate himself. He would know that he was caught. The American people would know that he has been lying all this time. The Heritage Foundation also invested a lot of resources and time into investigating the use of Biden's Autopen, and their findings point to an abuse of the device, at the very least. Listen.
We found that of the 51 clemency warrants issued during the Biden presidency, over half, 32 in total, were signed with an Autopen. And these include some of the most controversial acts of clemency of the Biden presidency, including death row commutations and the preemptive pardons of members of the Biden family, Dr. Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, and more that were issued in the final days of the Biden presidency. We reviewed President Biden's schedule and his publicly available media and were unable to find any record of President Biden's personally approving these actions, such as a statement issued by the president himself to reporters. In addition, we found that the Biden White House used the Autopen to affix President Biden's signature to clemency warrants and executive orders while the president himself was in Washington, D.C. for at least some of that time to sign important executive actions. Finally, we found multiple days where President Biden wet signed a bill into law but used an Autopen to issue an executive order or for other important executive actions.
Now, everyone and their mother were shoving documents left and right through that Autopen machine because they knew they could. Because the leader of the free world was asleep on a beach somewhere. Because Democrat operatives were accomplishing their agenda with or without Joe Biden's approval. Plain as day. It's something that Republicans and all concerned Americans were afraid of from the very start. Joe Biden was not competent. We called it here on this program. So did others. And now we've been proven right. Look, the Autopen is an authorized tool if and only if the president is aware of what's being signed. We have no evidence that Joe Biden was aware of anything. I'm also not sure the legality of Donald Trump striking them down, but we're going to find out. And if the Democrats fight back, how about discovery? That'd be nice. We'll take a break. It's the Steve Gruber Show live from Washington. Joe Biden's abilities were called into question the second he announced his intent to run in 2020. We all remember that. And when former ESPN host Sage Steele interviewed Joe Biden all the way back in 2021, she saw the truth. She knew it back then. Listen to what she says.
And then I said, oh, so you were a receiver? And he started to explain it. And here's the saddest thing. His voice just trailed off. He said, I was good. And then he went silent and he goes, oh, never mind. No, you're laughing. I thought it was so sad because I realized that's why he was in his basement during the whole election cycle. Right. Because even then, he couldn't finish his sentences. He struggled. So forget about politics. I don't care. I didn't vote for him. However, that made me sad.
He couldn't finish his sentences. That was true through his whole presidency. Oh, never mind. Of course, she failed to bring that up when the interview aired in 2021, which should have made every sane American angry, not sad. No one was allowed to question Joe Biden's abilities. His press secretary and personal cover-up artist, Karine Jean-Pierre, made sure of it every single day from the podium. Here she is acting so shocked that former CNN host Don Lemon would ever dare to ask her about the president's abilities, his mental cognitivity. Here she is. Listen.
Didn't have the stamina, physically and mentally, do you think, to continue on even after 2024?
Don, you're asking me this question. Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. You know, I can't even keep up with him. We just got back from New Mexico. We just got back from California. That is not a question that we should be even asking. Just look at the work that he does. Look how he's delivering for the American public.
Oh, we saw. That's not a question we should even be asking. Are you serious? That's the narrative she and others pushed over and over in that final year, continuously. He's falling off from bicycles, falling upstairs, unable to finish sentences, and his collapse at the debate, well, that was infamous. They hid him from the press, hid him from the public, and even key figures of his own administration, and demanded that nobody ask any serious questions. He wasn't seen by members of his cabinet for months at a time. And when the press still did anyways, like this reporter from Real Clear Politics, well, Karine would just lie through her teeth. Watch.
What I can say is this is a president who is strong and resolute in delivering for the American people. That's what I see. I see a president when I'm sitting in front of him, you know, going through the day or talking about what he's doing next. He is someone that engages with us. He wants to know. He pushes us. He prods us, wanting to figure out like the bigger picture of whatever we're trying to explain to him, or even granular details. He is as sharp as ever, as I have known him to be in my engagement and my experience with him. And I know when I walk into the Oval Office or see him on Air Force One, I have to be on top of my game. I do. I mean, and that's just kind of my engagement with him and how it's been for the past couple of years.
He wanted to know about the bigger picture. What color crayons is that? I love Crayola. And then he dropped out of the race, and Karine had no apologies to offer for her part in the cover-up. And make no mistake, it was a cover-up. No one said she wrote a book about leaving the Democrat Party because everyone was so mean to her and Joe. These people lied about his capabilities, and it's more than likely that they were just as dishonest and immoral when using the Autopen. That's the problem. So yes, of course, every document signed by the Autopen should be null and void. But this will be challenged in the courts. A 2005 legal opinion from the Department of Justice affirmed that the Autopen is just as legally binding when signing a bill into law, yet never before we had a presidency so questionable in U.S. history. See, in order for the Autopen to be legitimate, again, the president has to be aware of what is being signed. Now, whether or not Trump's declaration on voiding the Autopen documents is enforceable, I don't know. I'm looking forward to the process because when this is legally challenged, like I said, we enter discovery, potentially, where all the relevant parties will be forced to exchange information concerning Joe Biden's cognitive abilities. And the public deserves to know that information. Everyone who lied to the American public and facilitated this cover-up needs to face the music. And if they want to challenge Trump, that's what they'll have to do. Look, bottom line, Trump just dropped the hammer and said every single thing that got rubber stamped by Biden's Autopen is toast because it wasn't Biden at all. It's done. It's null. It's void. If the guy wasn't even awake, aware, or in the room when his name got slapped on pardons for Hunter, Fauci, Milley, and the J6 clown show, then those aren't presidential acts. They're staffer fan fiction. Yeah, the courts are going to freak out. And the same people who had Joe Biden's plants and teleprompters will scream bloody murder. Let them. Discovery's coming. Subpoenas, depositions, the whole circus. The truth about who was really running the country is finally going to get dragged into the light of day. America got played for 4 years. It's time to hit the undo button. And I applaud President Trump for calling it out. Well, if you hate choking down pills, Protovite Plus gives you a stick-pack powder full of essentials. B12, vitamin C, blueberry juice powder. Pour it in your water, smoothie, or morning shake. Multivitamins shouldn't be complicated. Protovite Plus hits the essentials. Magnesium and B vitamins for energy and stress. Iodine for thyroid support. And blueberries and vitamin C for antioxidants. No more choking down huge pills. Protovite Plus gives you a stick-pack powder full of essentials. Just tear, mix, and sip. No mess, no pill bottles. It's the tastiest vitamins and minerals with the fastest and fullest delivery to your cells. Only from Victory Nutrition International. Nutrition that gets in. You can get 20% off at vni.life/Gruber with the promo code Gruber. That's vni.life/Gruber. It's the vitamins we use here. Trust me, we did the research. And you know what? So did Victory Nutrition International. Again, 20% off, vni.life/Gruber, promo code Gruber. I'll take a break and be right back. Live from Washington, D.C., a special edition of The Steve Gruber Show. More action on Capitol Hill on Wednesday as a subpoena was issued to Jack Smith. House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan subpoenaed the former special counsel for a deposition escalating the Republican investigation into what really went on. Jordan directed Smith to appear before the committee December 17th, according to a copy of the subpoena reviewed by several news outlets. Due to your service as special counsel, the committee believes that you possess information that is vital to its oversight of this matter. The forthcoming deposition, which is set to take place behind closed doors, comes as House and Senate Republicans have zeroed in on Smith's election-related investigation of Donald Trump, of course, describing it as a scandal that's unnecessarily swept up hundreds of Republican lawmakers, GOP entities, Trump allies, and media outlets as part of the probe, probably this one included. Now they want answers. Jim Jordan wants answers. Meanwhile, James Comer is launching an investigation into the Minnesota fraud allegations against the Somali community when it comes to welfare benefits. Billions of dollars that have been fraudulently taken by members of the Somali community, according to the investigation. The governor there, Tim Walz, saying nothing to see here, which means there's something to see there. We'll see if these subpoenas get ignored or if people show up. Bill and Hillary Clinton expected to be subpoenaed. Will they show up? Of course not. Will Jack Smith show up? I don't know if I'll take the over-under on that. I don't expect to see Jack Smith show up. I'll just tell you that. I don't think so. We're going to find out if that happens. All right, coming up, as I told you at the top of the program, everything's up. Stock market's up. Gold is up. Crypto's up. If you own it, it's probably worth more today than it was yesterday. And the stock market's going to open in the green again this morning. It's all part of the big, beautiful bill. Things are coming to fruition. Gruber Norcross will join me after the break, Americans for Tax Reform president, to discuss what the big, beautiful bill means and what a second reconciliation bill could mean to enhance what's already happened. Stay with me here. It's the Steve Gruber Show live from Washington. All right, back to it. Like I said, if you've got stocks, bonds, if you've got gold or silver, if you've got crypto, it's all up today. And a lot of this has to do with the big, beautiful bill, the reconciliation bill that went through earlier this year. Join me now, Grover Norquist, Americans for Tax Reform president. Grover, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Steve, good to be with you.
You know, one of the complaints I hear from Republicans, and maybe there's truth to this, is that there was so much in this bill, instead of doing it one at a time or a group at a time, that a lot of the benefits are lost on the American public, but they're starting to see it, aren't they?
They are. I mean, it made it easier to invest in creating jobs in the United States. It made it easier for people who work on tips. It helped people on Social Security. It reduced tax rates for every single taxpayer in the country. I mean, it's over and over and over again. One of the things that's going to happen as a result is that a lot of people are going to get a bigger refund than usual, because when they did no tax on tips, people aren't necessarily certain exactly how that was going to happen. They didn't perhaps start planning their taxes and so on, but they're going to find out that starting on January 19th of this year, okay, that's when all of these wonderful low tax efforts began. And so people are going to find they owe less taxes than I expected, and that's going to be quite a nice number. If you worked on taxes, tips rather, and there are no taxes on tips up to $25,000, this means that all the way back till next year, tips you got, January 20th of this year on through are deductible. That's true whether you're an independent contractor or an employee. It's true whether you file and take deductions or file with a standard deduction. You get that above the line. So it is a wonderful collection of lower taxes that are now permanent, by the way. The changes this year are permanent out into infinity. Unless the Democrats take over the country, you will be protected against those tax hikes.
Yeah, unless somebody comes in that wants more taxes, which one side of the house seems to like that a lot more than the other. The president this week, a couple of times here in Washington, suggesting the idea that that's just a nice start. He says income tax should become a thing of the past. What would that do to the economy?
Well, we didn't always have an income tax. Back at the turn of the century, we did not raise money from income taxes. We raised money from tariffs. We raised money from selling land. We could get back into the business of selling. A good chunk of the federal of everything west of the Mississippi is owned by the federal government and therefore not put to use. We don't use it effectively. We don't let people build houses on it, which is one of the problems in the West in particular, where it's difficult to get housing that's not terribly expensive. All of these things we could do to sell more land, to reduce the income tax. But the most important thing we can do to reduce the income tax is to reduce government spending. When we got the income tax, all this lovely money came in, and the politicians started thinking, well, it's our money now, let's spend it.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned all that land in the Western United States that's government, federal government land. That was never part of the Constitution. Every other state east of the Mississippi, when they became a state, they got the land. But not Wyoming, not Montana, not the Dakotas, not Utah, not Arizona. Why? What happened? Because that is a big deal.
It is, and I think it's clearly unconstitutional. The agreement when the states, we started 13 states, and then they realized, we're going to have more states than just 13. At first, they were thinking of just running North Carolina all the way across to the Pacific, and that'd be North Carolina. No. We're going to have many states. And the promise was all new states come in with the same rules as the first 13. They all get 2 senators, those sorts of things. And all the 13 states, what did they got? They got all the federal land to the state, and for the state to be able to distribute it to individuals or to sell it to individuals. When we got past the Mississippi, they stopped doing that. And then, of course, everything from North Carolina down to Texas was federal land, and they said, this is wrong. And then they gave it to those states, but they never made the fix for all of the big Western states with so much land.
That's right.
So our court case is coming on this. That may change.
Yeah, well, it should change in my estimation. There are obviously 2 different sides of that argument in the Western United States. I've got a lot of friends out west. Some want it to happen, some do not, and so it is. Let me ask you about a couple other things here. What about a $2,000 tariff refund, if you will? The president's also talking about that. Basically, a $2,000 stimulus check based on the tariffs that have been coming in. Your thought, and only for some people, not for all, for those that are up to a certain income level. What do you think about that?
I don't think it's going to happen. With what money? We're in deficit. There is no money. You can talk about the money that's coming in from tariffs, but beyond that, there's a Supreme Court decision coming, which will probably strike down much, if not most, of the tariffs that are there. There are some that Congress passed laws and said the presidents can negotiate these sorts of tariffs by themselves, but the Constitution is very clear. Only the president, I'm sorry, only Congress, not the president, only Congress can pass a tariff law or a tax increase. And that's
now Grover's, what they're explaining on the Republican side is there may be truth to that. They may have done it too broadly, but they say if they make them targeted tariffs in certain ways and take a different approach, that the tariffs will remain in place. Because look, this president's been able to exact a lot of results from tariffs, making deals with the UK and Canada and China. And so he needs that leverage to put America back in a position of being successful, I believe. And so they're going to take a different approach, aren't they?
Well, he used that leverage to get better deals. Now we don't need these tariffs. I mean, this is the point wasn't to raise prices for Americans on goods and services. No. It was to get better trade deals with Europe and other countries, which the president's had a great deal of success in. Once you've done that, we don't need to keep some of the higher tariffs we have.
That is
everybody. A lot of foodstuffs, those tariffs came down. So we can do both. The president got his wins, and now we need to keep prices down to deal with the affordability crisis. Because unfortunately, tariffs do increase the costs for American citizens, but he used them to win advantage for us around the world.
Yeah, overall, fairly optimistic about the economy. I am. I'm wondering what your feeling is. We just saw a record-setting Black Friday, $26+ billion spent. The prediction for Christmas is $1 trillion. And then a pretty good announcement, a couple of them here in Washington this week, savings accounts for children and reducing the CAFE standards for car makers should help out those industries. I'll give you the last word.
The deregulation of autos so that you don't have to make them out of newspapers and plastic anymore. And government should not be telling people what kind of cars to buy or what cars to build. This is a wonderful step that the president did. And this is billions and billions of dollars in lower costs for the next car you buy. It is a huge, huge deal. I share your optimism about the economy. One of the things the president's looking at doing is something he wanted to do in 2019, end the tax on inflation when you pay capital gains. So when you sell your house, you don't pay tax on that increase in the value of your house that was just inflation. Or if you sell your farm or a ranch or your small business that you created or the stocks that you own, this will be a tremendous step forward and can be done by the Treasury Secretary as a rulemaking. So it will not require Democratic votes, although many Democrats
look forward to it.
Have endorsed this.
Yeah, we got to leave it right there. Grover Norquist, always an education. Thank you for being here.
Good to be with you.
All right. Continuing now from Washington, D.C., a special edition this week of the Steve Gruber Show, live from Washington all week. Glad to be here. I've had some great opportunities today. The President of Rwanda and the President of the Republic of the Congo coming in to sign a peace deal with President Trump. It's an important activity happening today here in Washington. We'll have full coverage here tomorrow. Here's the truth. Legal immigration is a good thing for America. Illegal immigration is not. I know, because my next guest is a legal immigrant. Peter Lamage is an attorney, GOP strategist, former Albanian political refugee, and now a conservative candidate for the position of Secretary of State in the state of Connecticut. It's a big job. It's a big opportunity. Peter, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
So you came here legally, and now you've looked at the political landscape. You've decided you're a conservative, but Connecticut, it's not. Tough state for a conservative to run in. Why did you decide to get in the race?
Well, when my brothers and I escaped communist Albania 37 years ago, government agents showed up. They rounded up my family, including my parents, 7 siblings that were left behind, nieces and nephews, and took them to a concentration camp. They tortured my father to death because he had failed to notify the government that his sons, 4 of us, wanted to search for freedom and opportunity. I always tell people that my father was willing to die, to sacrifice his life so I can live in freedom. And everything that I left behind in Eastern Europe is coming to the United States. Socialism is coming to the United States. And, coming to the United States legally, I don't see any problems with people who choose to come over here, embrace our values, become Americans. Look, to come to the United States, before you had to submit to a background investigation, which we did. We had to be fingerprinted. We needed a sponsor. We were interviewed by the U.S. Embassy to make sure that we're coming here for the right reasons. And I don't see any problems with those standards. I waited in that camp for 9 months to be processed to come over here. And I would do it again if need be, because America is the greatest country in the world. Now, being involved in politics, I don't want to see this great country of ours that embraced my family and I slipping into socialism, and we're moving towards socialism. Look what's happening in New York City, Minnesota, other states and cities that we have all these socialists, and some of them coming from countries that pretty much were socialistic in nature. And once they become American citizens here, they are promoting the same policies that they left behind, and that perturbs me.
We've done a terrible job of educating young people in this country about socialism. They can't tell you about Chairman Mao or Stalin or the Great Leap Forward or what Castro did or Pol Pot. We do a terrible job, Peter, of educating our young people, because that's why they're embracing it, because they don't know any better, because they're ignorant. It's not their fault. We didn't teach them well. That's a fact. Let me ask you about something else. Georgia's judge down there dismissing the 2020 election interference case against President Trump. What do you make of that? First of all, what do you think about election integrity? Should there be voter ID? Should you have to be a United States citizen? Easy questions, actually.
To prove that they're American citizens, that they have a picture ID. We should know where they live, if they live in the district that they're voting in or a state that they're voting in. I don't see any problems with that. We're not discriminating against anyone. We just want to make sure that elections is a process that is trusted by the voters, and anyone who wants to vote as an American citizen is not being prevented from voting. As far as the president's charges being dropped, I think that that was one of the most glaring case of a clearly politically persecuted and prosecution of the case. I mean, he was persecuted for political reasons. We all knew that he was being targeted because of what he stood for. And President Trump, I think, is the only president in modern history that understands the threat that is coming to the United States from this failed
We'll wait for that. There he is. Hold right there, Peter. We're having a bit of a technical issue here. We'll just bear with that a little bit. But isn't it interesting to hear from an immigrant who has experienced socialism and says that is the wrong way to go? You know, a new poll finds that 1 in 3 young Americans believe political violence is justified. And many expect unrest to grow. I mean, we saw the attack on the National Guard members right here in Washington, D.C., Peter. It's kind of a frightening thing, isn't it?
Look, anyone who tries to justify political violence is on the wrong side of history. We have seen that movie before, and I don't like the ending of it. In 2009, there was a candidate in Albania for the Christian Democratic Party. He was assassinated. My brother was his campaign manager, and he was at the verge of being assassinated for political reasons. We cannot settle these differences by political violence, by trying to assassinate the ones that we disagree with. The unfortunate part is that every time that this kind of violence happens in the United States, we have the media, we have the left trying to justify these actions and even blaming that on their mental, situation or mental status of the individual. Make no mistake, these people who are coming to the United States from certain cultures which are not compatible with the American way of life, they're coming here with the intent of killing us and harming us. If you can go back to 1968, when the first terrorist act, I would say, was committed with the assassination of Bobby Kennedy, to today, all these assassinations or all these terrorist acts were committed by a certain group. And we keep on bringing them to the United States, knowing that they are not compatible with our culture. Arnold Toynbee years ago said that great civilizations are not murdered, they commit suicide. The West is committing suicide, including the United States, by bringing certain groups of people to the United States who are not willing to assimilate into our culture, who are not willing to embrace the Christian values that we have. And we have to do a better job when it comes to bringing legal immigrants to the United States and make sure that they have values that are with ours.
Yeah. Tell the folks real quickly, where is your website so they can find out more about you and your candidacy? We got about 20 seconds.
It's peterlumaj.com. Peter, L-U-M-A-J, it's one word, peterlumaj.com. All the other platforms are there. And thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Peter, you come back anytime. Telling the people the truth about socialism is a good place to start. Thank you for being here. I'll take a break and be right back. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Well, here's a headline you wouldn't hear, I don't think, going the other way. So let me share it with you. President Trump yesterday pardoned Congressman Henry Cuellar of Texas. He's a Democrat. He's a Democrat who spoke out loudly about Joe Biden's open borders during the Biden administration. And then he was investigated, and then he was taken down. But President Trump pardoned, a full and unconditional pardon Wednesday for Henry Cuellar, Democrat, Texas, and his wife, Imelda. And here's what was written by the president on Truth Social. For years, the Biden administration weaponized the justice system against their political opponents and anyone who disagreed with them. One of the clearest examples was when Crooked Joe used the FBI and DOJ to take out a member of his own party. And after a highly respected Congressman Henry Cuellar bravely spoke out against open borders and the Biden border catastrophe. Sleepy Joe went after the congressman and even the congressman's wonderful wife, Imelda, simply for speaking the truth. It is un-American. As I previously say, the radical left Democrats are a complete and total threat to democracy. They will attack, rob, lie, cheat, destroy, and decimate anyone who dares to oppose their far left agenda. An agenda that, if left unchecked, will obliterate our magnificent country. Now, Cuellar was asked, as you can imagine, are you going to become a Republican? He said, no, I'm a Democrat, but he's a conservative Democrat, which is kind of rare these days. Not too many blue dog Democrats alive in the wild anymore, but Henry Cuellar is. He got a pardon from the president. Sounds like it was the right thing to do, and we'll leave it at that. If you're looking for high-quality pet food made in America, man, you need to try the dog food that we use. Great Lakes Pet Food. Ivy and I went looking for dog food that wasn't made in China a few years ago. Remember all those stories, those horror stories about pets dying because the pet food coming from China was contaminated? Well, you don't have to worry about that. Great Lakes Pet Food made in Michigan, from the highest quality pork and chicken. Great Lakes Pet Food is the dog food I use for our herd. Michigan-made Great Lakes Pet Food. GreatLakesPetFood.com to find out more. GreatLakesPetFood.com to find out more. It is a great product. We've been using it for years now. Our dogs love it. In fact, they could probably lose a couple of pounds, not unlike their owner. We're going to talk about the big workforce wins across America coming up, the economy doing well, the CAFE standards rolled back by the president to help out the auto industry. A lot of great news yesterday coming out of Washington. We'll have more as the Steve Gruber Show continues.
something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent.
Come on, man.
We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
And welcome to it live from Washington, D.C., a special edition of the program all week here, live from the nation's capital, fighting for you from the biggest foxhole of freedom that there is. Yeah, right here at the White House and Congress. Three big things to know this hour. Number one, new photos reveal disturbing images of Jeffrey Epstein's island compound. What it doesn't do is tie President Trump to any of it. Surprised? Yeah, me either. Number two, Senator Rand Paul is weighing in on fixing health care for Americans, and he is taking the president's plan for HSAs and doing it one better. We'll explain. And number three, as I said in the last hour, it seems the Democrats have pivoted again, having failed at the government shutdown, realizing the Epstein files only contain high-level Democrats so far. Now they're lying about affordability and attacking the president and Pete Hegseth for destroying drug boats from Venezuela. Yeah, Senator Eric Schmidt totally destroys the fake news on the attacks of these narco-terrorist boats. Look, we've seen this happen. And there's this ramped-up effort. Of course, there's Signalgate back in the headlines now, too, as they try to say that Pete Hegseth put national security at risk by using his Signal app on his phone. And now they're saying that he committed a war crime. That's their claim now, that Pete Hegseth committed a war crime. But here it is, Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri destroying it all. Listen.
What I can say is this is a president who is strong and resolute.
It's all they have. They're just in the desire then to treat him as a war criminal, to treat servicemen as war criminals, is beyond just like a normal political debate. That's what's happening right now. They don't have anything left. This is insane. And so, again, the Washington Post narrative, which was, again, anonymous sources, the New York Times totally debunks that today. So don't take it from me as a conservative Republican. Take it from the New York Times. This is nonsense. Clearly, you have narco-terrorists who are no longer going to make it through the southern border on land. They're on the high seas. President Trump has every right in the Western Hemisphere or anywhere to take out these terrorists who are poisoning our kids.
Yeah, taking out our kids. Here's another fact about Democrats ignoring Barack Obama. Killing civilians with drones almost from day one. Do you remember this? I certainly do. Listen.
I agree with that. And they should have a presumption that it has been legal, and I think that they did have that in this case. On the third day of Barack Obama's presidency, he ordered drone strikes. They killed 20 civilians. He would go on to order 500 drone strikes. These same Democrats who are up in arms about these strikes in Venezuela said boo about any of Barack Obama's drone strikes.
Yeah. They weren't up in arms about that. It killed Americans, by the way, including a 16-year-old. 3 Americans killed by Barack Obama's drone strikes. Was that a war crime? I don't remember the Democrats screaming about that. Democrats continue, in fact, to defend the narco-terrorist drug runners over the safety of American citizens. They don't even think shipping cocaine is a threat to our country. It's unbelievable. Listen to this.
Was this self-defense, and how do the rules of international waters play into whether this was a war crime?
Yeah, in my opinion, no. This is not self-defense. And no matter where you do the strike, if it's not self-defense, then it's illegal. And look, I have a lot of sympathy for the general idea that when we send our service members out into combat, they got some very difficult decisions to make. When you look at what was going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you're stopping someone, do they have a gun? Do they have a suicide vest? Are they a threat? When you're in the middle of an insurgency with roadside bombs and car bombs and all of that, even in the aftermath of the Afghanistan pullout, when we had that suicide bomber kill 13 service members and hundreds of people in Kabul, and we did that strike against a car that we thought was a threat that turned out not to be a threat, I have some sympathy for that. But people on a boat in the middle of the Caribbean carrying cocaine are not a direct threat to the lives of our service members or Americans.
Oh, they're not. Tell that to the 100,000 people who lost family members, friends, wives, husbands, daughters, sons. Husbands, wives, yeah, all that. Tell them that. Oh, it's no threat. Drugs are no big deal. More than 100,000. The majority come from fentanyl deaths, but then you add on heroin and cocaine and all the rest. People die every day. And you know, it's weird. It used to be that Democrats were on board with the war on drugs, an actual war on drugs, to keep that poison off of our nation's streets. There was a time in this country, believe it or not, when Democrats thought that attacking the drug cartels was a good idea. In fact, one of them was named Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. He was a senator from Delaware. You might remember that. Then he was president. He probably doesn't remember that, but we do. Back in 1989, we went to the archives. 1989, Joe Biden saying we must attack the cartels directly. From the archives, here it is.
Every president for the past 2 decades, Democrat and Republican alike, has declared war on drugs. And each of them has lost that war and lost it miserably. They lost because they attempted to deal with only part of the drug problem. They lost because their initiatives were pulled apart by bureaucratic squabbling among their advisors. They lost because they always did too little and they did it too late. We don't oppose the president's plan. All we want to do is strengthen it. We don't doubt his resolve. All we want to do is stiffen it. The trouble is that the president's proposals are not big enough to deal with the problem. We think we should do more to stem the flow of drugs across our borders, and we think we should go one step further. Let's go after the drug lords where they live, with an international strike force. There must be no safe haven for these narco-terrorists, and they must know it. We have to lock up the dealers for a long, long time, and we have to attack the source from which the drugs come. And we have to do that not a piece at a time, but all at once. And we have to do it now. And there's not any reason why we can't do that. We have the power, we have the money, and we have the knowledge.
The International Strike Force. We have to hit the cartels where they live. You see, there was a time when Democrats were on the American side, on the side of moms and dads who don't want their children to get poisoned for experimenting with drugs. Remarkable to hear, isn't it? Joe Biden, 1989. You know that stubborn ache that doesn't quite go away, the one that ice, heat, and pain pills barely touch? What if you could target it at the cellular level instead of just numbing it? Well, that's what TheraBlue was designed to do. TheraBlue is a next-generation pain-relieving peptide gel that works deeper than the skin surface, powered by AQA, Aqua, molecular delivery technology. It delivers peptides and botanicals directly into muscle tissue for legitimate lasting relief. Its hero ingredient, copper peptide, promotes collagen synthesis, reduces inflammation, and helps accelerate repair. NAD Plus restores cellular energy and aids recovery, while methylene blue provides and protects mitochondria and supports endurance. Natural extracts like MSM, turmeric, white willow bark, arnica, and ginger soothe inflammation, while menthol, camphor, and eucalyptus deliver cooling relief. It absorbs fast and leaves your skin refreshed and ready to go, not greasy. Get 10% off right now at The Wellness Company. TWC.health/Gruber. TWC.health/Gruber. Use the promo code Gruber. Move freely again with TheraBlue. I've been using it, and I got to be honest, I like it. I've had a little nagging pain in my leg. You know, a little problem there. We'll be right back on the Steve Gruber Show. You know, most Americans believe in giving people a second chance. They say that anyway. But is it really true? I'm going to ask you today, do you believe in giving people a second chance if they've committed a crime? Does it depend on what the crime is? Probably. John Kufos is a national leader in second chance hiring and justice to jobs initiatives. He is the head of Cottage for Consulting, a former trial attorney for gang and mob members. But he says it's time to give people a second chance. Says every state should follow suit on one state's big workforce win. He says it'll strengthen families, help state economies, and give people a chance to get plugged back in. I really appreciate you being here, John. Good morning.
Good to be with you, my friend.
All right, so you say that every state should follow suit. The criminals, people with criminal records, deserve a second chance most of the time. Not all of the time, but most of the time. Explain this.
That's correct. What I'm saying is that, appropriate people, right, with the skill set for a job shouldn't be shut out of the job market purely because of criminal record if they're no longer a public safety threat. And that's the key thing here, right? And I think what we launched projects across the country, but Florida is one of the most exciting ones we're doing, called Retaining Talent. And that's led in partnership with a tremendous public safety leader, Ricky Dixon, who's the Secretary of Corrections for the state of Florida, a very, very tough on crime, public safety minded guy, but a real corrections innovator, one of the best in the country. And the Florida Chamber of Commerce, which is one of the biggest chambers of commerce in the country. So what we have, Steve, is we have the state of Florida, which has a very hot economy, has labor issues. And then they have inmates receiving great programming behind the wall, appropriate inmates, receiving great programming behind the wall. And the idea is to make sure they can get in the job market so they don't reoffend.
Yeah, that's incredibly important. Look, if the appropriate people have a second chance, they have a chance to rejoin society. If they're not given a second chance, the chance of recidivism comes back, of committing more crimes, of living on the street, of being homeless, of being a drug addict. I mean, there's definitely some specific ways this can break, isn't it? I mean, you can go one way or the other, right?
There are, and I think from the business side, we've taken this from the business side. And again, I've done this in many states, Florida being one of probably the best of them all, thanks to the public safety leadership in that Department of Corrections and the chamber. And the idea here is I encourage employers to look at people with criminal records as an independent talent pool. In other words, no employer should change how they hire to give someone a second chance, or what they're doing, or whether they do background checks. They should do all those things. The idea here, though, is that if the best candidate just happens to be someone with a criminal record and that person appears to be rehabilitated, there's no reason to shut them out of the job market. And all the studies that the Society of Human Resources have done and nationally and internationally have shown that the right people with criminal records, and I guess this makes sense, right? They're the most loyal employees because they don't necessarily have a lot of options. They're very thankful to the employees that give them an option. They want to work. They cause the fewest problems at the job site if you do it right. And if you do it right is a cornerstone of the Retaining Talent program, because so many of us want to say, oh, I'll just go to the drug court. Someone has a drug problem and I'll go and help them. The problem is that person might be in early recovery, right? And if you're in early recovery, you're not ready to work just yet. You might be stealing copper off a job site if you're in early recovery. So until you get yourself to a point where you're ready to participate in the job market, our position at Retaining Talent is with the Retaining Talent Project, we're going to teach businesses how to do it safely. And we've done this. Look, we filmed a whole documentary on retainingtalent.org on it. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers opened up Ray James Stadium to let's film there. So this has got tremendous support both in Florida and across the country. And one last thing, when we did the First Step Back, the cornerstone of the First Step Back, when I was in the Oval Office with President Trump, was to make sure that appropriate people with criminal records have a pathway to work.
Yeah, it's important. It is. The Retaining Talent Project, how do people find out more about it? And who do you think does qualify? How do you know? How do you vet these people?
Sure. So to find out about it, it's retainingtalent.org. Retainingtalent.org is the website. And so how do you vet? And this is the beauty of having the Department of Corrections as a partner, because in most states, the Department of Corrections is also in charge of probation or parole, the supervising agency. So the DOCs are pre-vetting people for businesses right away, right? They know what skills the person has. The PO is not going to send somebody horrible to the business because they know that business will never hire again. So businesses actually have an extra layer of HR vetting that they couldn't get in the open market, right? So I think that's the thing. There's great community-based organizations. Use Florida, for example. Florida has a whole nonprofit called the Florida Foundation for Correctional Excellence, which works on these issues to help employers select the type of candidates that are appropriate for their business. And I say appropriate because not every person is ready. Look, not every dancer is ready for every song, right? Certain offenses disqualifying because they're just disqualifying or because of the particular issues, right? If you have a violent history, you're obviously not going to get a job around being a caregiver, right? If you have a serious drug history, I don't think we're going to put you in the back of a pharmacy to dispense Percocet. But there's hundreds of thousands of jobs. And this is growing with manufacturing coming back to America, data centers that are needed for AI. There are countless jobs coming, and we just don't have enough people to build all these things.
And Kufos, I think it's admirable what you're doing. Retainingtalent.org, retainingtalent.org. You can go find out more. John, thank you for sharing your stories here today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
And you too. I appreciate that. People deserve a second chance. What do you think? Send me an email, stevegruber.com. Tell me what your thoughts are on that particular story, or any story for that matter, stevegruber.com. Follow us on all the social media platforms. You can also go to stevegruber.com to listen live. No matter where you may travel, there's a listen live button. And if you want to watch it every day, YouTube is a great place to go. YouTube. Just look up The Steve Gruber Show, and guess what? You'll find it. I'll take a break and be right back. It's The Steve Gruber Show live from Washington, D.C. All right, well, some popular cheese products sold at places like Walmart, Target, and other stores being recalled because there are metal fragments in it. Something broke in the machinery, apparently. But this is what I got out of the story. You go to the store. Here's your shredded cheese product, whatever it is. And here's 4 different brands at 4 different prices. They all come from the same place. Listen to this. 235,000 cases of low moisture, part skim mozzarella sold under brands including Always Save, Borden, Surefine, Best Choice, and Parade, and at Aldi under the name Happy Farms were affected. It all came out of the Ohio-based Great Lakes Cheese Company. It's all the same cheese, but this one's $3 and this one's $2. Anyhow, if you've got shredded cheese from Walmart, Target, Aldi, check it out. It seems that there's some metal fragments in some of these cheeses and maybe some others as well. So you have been warned, and I just want to make sure that you're up to speed on that. I don't want you eating metal in your cheese. All right, that's fair, right? Let's see. This part of the program is brought to you by my good friends at Home Title Lock. Home Title Lock is your one way to make sure that your title in your home is in your name, right? In your name. HomeTitleLock.com. Did you know, by the way, homeowners in America, $32 trillion in equity. Cyber criminals targeting it with a growing scam. They call it house stealing. They go down, they fill out some paperwork is what they do. And before you know it, they've got the house in their name. They don't want to steal your TV. They want to steal your equity because you've been paying your mortgage for some period of time. And then they go in and they take over your mortgage, take over your money, and they take loans against it. And in bad cases, they'll take the house altogether and sell it. You don't want that to happen. You can get a free title history report today. Make sure your home's in your name. And at Home Title Lock, their triple lock protection will spend up to $1 million, put your home back in good standing if you have the protection. Go to HomeTitleLock.com, use the promo code Gruber, HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Gruber, and protect yourself from these house thieves. All right, you have been warned. I'll be right back. I was just talking about this yesterday about how, look, the truck that I drive, it spies on me all the time, has information, shares it with God only knows who. Your cell phone downloads things 1,000 times a day, right? Laptop, computer, the same. Your television's looking at you while you're looking at it. it would seem to me we could figure out where people are if we wanted to, right? And the point about that is biometrics. How do we let people into this country? We've got the technology to do all the things I just mentioned. You would think we could track people and figure out who's in the country, who should be, who should not be. It should be a lot easier than it seems to be. Anyhow, Joe Chatham is the Director of Government Relations at the Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR. Joe, welcome to the program.
It's great to be with you, Steve.
And if biometrics can do all those things and follow me in my car and on my phone and everything else, you'd think that we'd be able to do some things better at the border. Well, the DHS is strengthening biometric entry and exit rules and the system that's in place there. I feel like they're a little bit behind the times, but what is the new system? Is it going to help?
That's exactly right. There has been a statutory mandate in place since 1996 that DHS, formerly INS, establish a comprehensive entry and exit system. Those requirements were strengthened in statute following the 9/11 terror attacks, but despite those statutes, up until this point, we have not had that comprehensive system. DHS recently put forward a rule in the form of regulation to allow aliens to be required to be photographed both when entering and exiting the country. And the reason why that is so important is we have, to this point, not been able to expand beyond a pilot program, allowing for photographic capabilities at 15 different air or sea ports of entry. And what this new regulation would do is allow those capabilities to be expanded, and in doing so, would enable the Department of Homeland Security to track, exactly as you said, who is in the country and ascertain whether or not someone is attempting to enter the country under a different identity if they have already been in the country under another identity, so it would help crack down on the use of fraudulent documents. But more important than that, arguably, is that it would help to address the visa overstay rate. One of the key drivers of illegal immigration is often overlooked are visa overstays. Every year, we have millions of people, millions of foreign nationals come into the country on visas, and without being able to ascertain who is leaving the country, it has proven very difficult for DHS to keep track of those who are unlawfully in the country, and has led to them diverting resources to track down aliens who if they had photographic evidence, had left the country, they would have not needed to devote those resources to. And another reason why visa overstays are so important, and it's very, very topical in light of the events, the tragic events in the last couple days here, the shooting of the 2 National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Look, when I fly to Washington, they take my picture and they wait for it to pass and match my driver's license. When I go to the DMV, they take my picture. When I open my iPhone, it looks at me to decide whether I'm the right person or not. This is not new technology. This is basic. I can't find why this should be at every border crossing in the country. Taking somebody's picture should be mandatory. I agree with you on that. And that person should then be in the system. I'm in the system. You know, I can't get on an airplane without it, period. You can't. And yet here we are, right?
Absolutely. And that's precisely what the Department of Homeland Security is acting to correct with this regulation. 5 of the 9/11 hijackers overstayed their visas. This would help to prevent that type of abuse from occurring again. Every year, we have hundreds of thousands of foreign nationals in the country who have overstayed their visa. In fiscal year 2024, for instance, there was more than 530,000 aliens who overstayed their visas. And without that photographic evidence, which, as you said, is a common sense step to ensuring that we know who is in the country, it is very difficult to track those aliens.
Yeah. It just seems like common sense to me. And I can't believe that we have to go through all this, because you say this dates back to the 90s, these rules, these regulations, and the tracking. And here we are with, we don't know, 20 million illegals in the country? 25 million? Do we know who they are, where they went? No, and the Joe Biden open borders, when the Department of Homeland Security under Joe Biden took bulldozers down to the Texas border to remove, you know, the fencing, the razor wire that was put in by the state of Texas so that the people could flood across and in. I mean, what the hell were we doing? I mean, that was a blatant violation of American law, was it not?
The Biden administration consistently undermined our laws, exploited loopholes in the laws to welcome in millions of illegal aliens into the United States. The One Big Beautiful Bill, as Trump likes to call it, the reconciliation package, had nearly $200 billion in funding for border security and immigration enforcement to help address those abuses from the previous administration. But beyond that, Congress is looking at enacting additional legislation, namely H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act, which our listeners may be familiar with from the previous congressional session, to ensure that our laws are changed, that parole and asylum and other immigration policies cannot be abused by another anti-borders administration, as we saw under Joe Biden in the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
Yeah. Do you expect, now there's discussion of a second big beautiful bill, a new reconciliation bill, Joe. I think that's fairly likely to happen. Could we get some of this into that bill? I would expect we could, but what are your thoughts?
Reconciliation is a little bit tricky because it has to only pertain to the budget. So it's difficult to enact certain policy reforms, certain statutory reforms via regulation, via a reconciliation. However, there are things that we can do, additional changes that we can make to crack down on public benefit abuse by illegal aliens or by foreign nationals in the country who are abusing programs that are intended for law-abiding American citizens. And beyond that, addressing remittances, there was a 1% tax that was placed on remittance transfers, so payments sent home by foreign nationals in the United States in the first reconciliation package. However, there was a loophole that only made it apply to what they call cash or cash-like instruments, which is essentially money orders. So transfers via bank accounts, transfers via debit or credit cards were exempted. If we expand that coverage to ensure that it covers all types of funds that are being sent out of the country, that would be one of the key steps that we could take, and it is possible via reconciliation, to crack down on illegal immigration.
You know, I sit here like a lot of people that are listening going, how did we ever get to a point? We have no command and control of the border. We don't know where people are. Money's being shipped out of the country. It's infuriating. Joe, I got to leave it there for today, but thank you for the education. Joe Chatham, Director of Government Relations at FAIR. Joe, thank you. Yeah, it's unbelievable. No command and control. No oversight, no idea who's here and who's not. How did we ever get here? I'm going to take a break and be right back. It is the Steve Gruber Show. All right, how about this? You're told you didn't file the right paperwork. The government swoops in, takes your house, evicts you from the house, and then the house gets auctioned off in a fire sale for a fraction of its value because that's the way the government works sometimes. This happened in Michigan to the Pung family. They're represented by Phil Ellison of the Pacific Legal Foundation. He joins me now today. Phil, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So the Pung family didn't file the right paperwork, they were told. Then the county evicted them. The home was auctioned off. Fire sale. I mean, just here, pennies on the dollar type thing. And they're out in the cold. How does this happen? And why is the Pacific Legal Foundation on board with it?
Well, Pacific Legal Foundation has co-counseled with me. I'm a law firm here in Michigan that's been representing the Pung family for 9 years, involving a case that unfortunately has happened to thousands of people all over the country. And what is the short version of it is government, forecloses on a tax. Whether you owe the tax, you don't owe the tax, which in this case, we don't even owe the tax. And then they sell it for pennies on the dollar, keep all the money. But the biggest problem is they destroy all the equity that people spend a lifetime building because it's just easier for the government to cash out and leave. And we think that's wrong.
To me, it sounds like a takings case that the government's going to be on the hook for. A takings case that the government can't just take your property and not give you fair market value. That's number one. Was this a property tax issue? That's what I need. Was this property tax that there was a problem with?
There was a property tax credit, even more egregious. A credit they were owed, and the local assessor granted and then secretly took away without the family knowing.
All right, so Phil, that brings me to the big question here in Michigan: property taxes in general. I think the property taxes should be eliminated. There's a move afoot in Michigan to get it on the ballot for November of next year. If property taxes didn't exist, the Pung family wouldn't be in this position for 9 years. That's the other thing. It's been going on for 9 years, you just mentioned. How is that possible?
So the reality is that the courts haven't developed a strong enough legal framework to deal with this wrong that has been occurring quietly and silently in Michigan for approximately 20 years. And we're extremely excited that the United States Supreme Court has decided to jump in and will provide that framework so that folks like, the Pung family and the thousands and thousands of others who are in the same position that they're in will not have their life's work destroyed because the government wants to do a quick fire sale.
So what is the Supreme Court going to do? Are they going to hear the case? What is the situation involving SCOTUS?
So the Supreme Court's been asked to answer a very narrow question, that when government forecloses on a piece of property for taxes that are owed, a small debt, is the start of that calculation, is it start from the fair market value, or does it start from the fire sale price? And from that first number dictates what the final number the government owes. We say it's the fair market value is the starting number. The courts below, and the county in this case, says it's the fire sale price. And we think that's wrong. And so the Supreme Court will be answering with the correct calculation, the correct framework that the Fifth Amendment and the Eighth Amendment excessive fines clause requires in these circumstances.
So let me ask you, in your estimation then, is it a takings case? And if it is, the Pung family would be owed not just their fair market value, but their equity that was lost, interest on that debt, and everything else. I mean, they should be made whole, should they not?
That's right. And you're absolutely right. Fair market value is the rubric, and this entire amount of the equity of a home is the framework that our founders really envisioned when they said under the Fifth Amendment that government has to pay just compensation. And just compensation doesn't mean the scraps that are left over when the government does an improper tax sale or an unfair tax sale, but really what is the true heart of the property that's taken. And in this case, I mean, I could spend an hour talking about this case, but in the 5 seconds to explain is they had at the time a $200,000 house on a tax they didn't really owe, and the government sold it for a mere $76,000. They destroyed over 60% of the equity and said, not our problem. And we think it is their problem because the Constitution makes it their problem.
Well, $200,000 home almost a decade ago. It may have doubled in value since then.
Oh, it has.
The grief they've gone to. Clearly house prices in America have gone through the roof everywhere. What do you think they're owed, financially owed?
Well, financially owed in this particular case, they're owed at least the equity in there that was taken from them, plus interest, plus you have to reimburse the cost for someone like me to do 9 years of litigation. And that's a huge expense in and of itself. The reality is that government takes advantage of these situations where most people who have a home that is usually their largest asset, it's usually their biggest and most important thing they've spent their life working on. And the reality is that when folks come in to try to fight back, they don't have the resources to go hire attorneys to go do this kind of thing. And so this thing has been this quiet, creeping, unconstitutional process that's been living in states like Michigan for years. And the hope is with this court case, the Supreme Court will establish the clean, clear framework that will effectively force states to fix their legislation on property tax issues.
Yeah, it's absolutely outrageous. What county are we talking about here? We've not mentioned the county by name yet.
Yep, Isabella County, which is in almost the center of the state, near a town called Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
Yep, there you have it, Isabella County, Mount Pleasant. The Pung family. Where are they now?
Mr. Pung, this is the party that's there is the estate. Mr. Pung passed away. His uncle, who's the executor, he lives nearby in the nearby town. This family has been through just an unbelievable fight with all sorts of levels of courts and governments to try to get justice for themselves. And we're really banking on our hopes that the 9 justices of the Supreme Court will finally deliver that justice for them in this case.
Well, Phil, I hope so as well. You're working with the Pacific Legal Foundation, not of counsel there, as they say, but doing great work. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the time this morning.
Really appreciate it. What now? There it is. AXMITax, AXMITax.org. Get rid of property taxes in Michigan, and you wouldn't have a problem like this.
Hey, didn't the petition?
You go to AXMITax. Go ahead, Anthony.
Isn't the petition for that over the date to sign the petition?
They extended it. My understanding is they extended it through December, so we're still in the game.
Sweet.
There you go. AXMITax.org. Sign your name. Get rid of this kind of nonsense. I'll be right back. let's check in on Brock with sports.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. 9 games in the NBA last night. Winners included New York, Milwaukee, Dallas, and Houston. In men's college basketball, a couple of upsets. 25th ranked Arkansas upset 6th ranked Louisville. 89-80 in Fayetteville, and Minnesota upset 22nd ranked Indiana in Minneapolis 73-64. In women's college basketball, top 25 winners included 6th ranked Michigan, 7th ranked Maryland, 8th ranked TCU, and 9th ranked Oklahoma. In the NHL, there were just 5 games. Winners were Philadelphia, Montreal, Washington, Dallas, and Utah. In college football coaching news, Kansas State coach Chris Kleeman announced his retirement. It is expected that Kleeman will coach the 6-6 Wildcats in the bowl game coming up later this month. And South Florida named Ohio State offensive coordinator Brian Hartline as their head coach. Hartline will stay with the Buckeyes throughout the college football playoffs. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, what's your prediction for Saturday in the Big Ten Championship? Give it to me.
Rooting for Indiana, but picking Ohio State in a close game.
I don't think it's going to be very close, but okay. I guess, if Indiana wins, wouldn't that be something? That'd tip the college football playoffs on its ear a little bit.
Not as much as you might think. Like I told you yesterday, or it might have been Tuesday, the only thing that these two teams are playing for is A, the Big Ten championship, and B, the #1 overall seed in the college football playoff. That's basically it, because they're both in, and both are likely to get byes into the quarterfinals.
Ohio State 24-10.
Okay.
There's my prediction.
Okay.
2 touchdowns.
All right.
2 touchdowns. 24-10. I just think, on any given day, they could beat the New York Giants. Of course, the Lions barely could, but I think the Buckeyes
could. Yeah, that's the
could.
thing. I'm not sure about that. I think the Giants 1 through 40 is better than Ohio State's 1 through 40, as good as that is for the Buckeyes.
Fair enough. All right, Trump's Venezuela gamble. Are we putting boots on the ground? Sure does sound like we're going to. All right. Sure does sound like we're going to. We'll talk about that coming up in the next hour here on the Steve Gruber Show. Don't go anywhere. Find out more at stevegruber.com in the meantime.
something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent.
Come on, man.
We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
And welcome back to the next hour here as we light the fuse. Another big hour here of the program, live from Washington, D.C. Been here all week. It's been fascinating, as it always is. Very busy around here. The president doing all sorts of things, changing cafe standards and working on so many different things. We'll talk about all that coming up. We've got Kat Kamek coming up, Congresswoman from Florida. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, Palisades nuclear plant is getting $400 million and a shot at coming back as a nuclear plant. Number two, the Trump administration's energy agenda hailed as crucial wins, including that cafe standard change. That's a big deal. And number three, this is a great story on Michigan News Source today. Dearborn Muslims voted for Trump, but they have little else in common with the so-called MAGA crowd. Little else. But they voted for Donald Trump in 2024. They didn't like Kamala Harris. And so they voted for Donald Trump and helped Michigan come into Donald Trump's column. But let me give you an example here of the disconnect between the Muslim community and those on the Republican or MAGA side of the equation. And that's Abdul El Sayed. He's running for U.S. Senate again in Michigan. He comes from Southeast Michigan. And he thinks socialism is the path forward. Here he is.
You have a young leader with vision who did not shy away from what she thought the world ought to be like. And I think what people are looking for from their politicians is that future vision. I think so much of our politics is about the past. We want to contest what happened a year ago or 5 years ago or 9 years ago, instead of thinking about what we want in the next 5 years or 10 years for us, for our kids, for the next generation. And I think she was giving us a sense of what that vision. Obviously, she was up against real obstacles. But this is what's possible in a lot of communities if we are willing to have the courage as a party to actually go out and fight for that vision.
Yeah. So he was talking about the woman who ran in Tennessee 7 and lost the race on Tuesday to the Republican Van Epps. And the reason he's talking about that, he's saying these young socialists, these democratic socialists like Mamdani in New York, and those that ran in Minneapolis and Seattle, that they are the future. I think he is mistaken. But if you look at Dearborn, for example, Dearborn went to Donald Trump by about 2,000 votes, 17,000 to 15,000. But after that, there's not a lot of support. States like Michigan and Pennsylvania, where Muslim voters were drawn to Trump's promise of peace in the Middle East, a stark contrast to Democrat policies that many felt had exacerbated conflicts in the region. That's why they came and broke for Trump, not in big numbers, but enough to carry Dearborn. Unfortunately, the first thing that came out of the Harris team's mouth said there would be no change in foreign policy regarding Lebanon and Israel. That according to Albert Abbas, a prominent Muslim businessman in Michigan. And there you have the disconnect, though. Socialism in Michigan being supported, advocated for by Abdul El Sayed, again running for the United States Senate in Michigan as a Democrat, not as a Republican, of course. No surprise there. Now, talking about socialism as compared to the free market and capitalism, Howard Lutnick says tariffs that are being challenged in the Supreme Court may get struck down. In fact, he thinks it's possible. But he says the Trump administration knows that's coming. They're already planning for it, and they have backup scenarios and plans to go forward. Here he is.
We're going to win the case. I think I'm confident. I was there. I sat there. I listened to the whole case. I think we win 5-4 or 6-3 because I think the president's absolutely right. You know, he's allowed to regulate importation. That's the rules. He can do it with a fee and a tariff. I think that is perfectly reasonable. However, we have other tools as well, right? We have tons of different rules. Like this building has 232 tariffs, which already went through the Supreme Court, and we won 9-0. So that's autos, that's semiconductors, that's steel and aluminum, that's lumber. So all those stay. So all these big trade deals, I think, are durable, and they will stay. And I think if the unfortunate thing happens, the crazy thing happens where the Supreme Court didn't side with the president, which I think they will, then we have other tools, and we'll put them right in place. Tariffs are here to stay. The deals are here to stay. Everyone should expect this is the way it's going to be. America's going to be richer.
America's going to be richer. Well, you know, I look at the economy on a daily basis. I'm sure you do as well. One of the things I look at, AAA gas prices down again today. The national average is $2.99, and keep that in mind when you realize that California's average is $4.52. Right, so the national average in California is $4.52, Nevada's $3.68, Oregon $3.75, Washington over $4 at $4.14, Pennsylvania, believe it or not, $3.25 still, Arizona $3.25. But some states like Oklahoma are at $2.40. Some stations in Oklahoma now selling gas for under $2 a gallon. This is all very good news, right? And if it's good news, why are Americans acting like they don't feel it? We just saw a record Black Friday, $26 billion spent, a record Cyber Monday. $1 trillion is the prediction to be spent on Christmas shopping this year. $1 trillion, first time ever, $1 trillion. So somebody's feeling pretty good about it. Others are not. But why are we not feeling it? Well, listen to this.
First 10 months of this year, the median family income is up by about $1,200. That's after inflation, Lauren. So that means that their wages and salaries have gone up faster than inflation. So to some extent, this affordability crisis is a mythology. People can afford more. And incidentally, we know that, Lauren, because look at what's happening with the amount of money people are spending. Look what happened on Black Friday with the 10% hit. If people don't have the money, how can they go out and be spending this kind of money on Christmas presents? So I think to some extent, there's an exaggerated affordability crisis. Now, look, I understand people want to buy a steak or you want to buy coffee or you want to buy a home. Those prices are high. But how about the price of gasoline, Lauren? We don't talk a lot about that.
$2.99 today, Steve.
Yes, thank you.
Nationally. Nationally.
We got a
it's
two
true.
handle.
I think
and it was $5 a gallon under Biden. Remember that?
I talk about gasoline. Obviously, you know that. And it looks like the Dow's going to open up today. A little bit, up 30, 40 points to open. Maybe 50 points. The same thing for the NASDAQ and S&P are both going to open up slightly today. That's after a big day yesterday, and yesterday was a big day on the market. So if you have investments just about anywhere, things are looking better. The Dow was up more than 400 yesterday, the NASDAQ 40, the S&P 500 almost 30 points. So that's all good. The price of gold also going up. It's above 4,200 for the first time in a while. It's just below that now, but it's been going up and down over 4,200. Reached almost 4,250 yesterday. Pretty much wherever your money is right now, it's doing better. The year-over-year growth for silver, 87%. 87%. The year-over-year growth for gold, 60%. So a lot of places to have some confidence, but people are still concerned about their wages, about inflation, about the cost of, well, just about everything. But we'll continue to cover it here for you. And look, when there's good news, we're going to share it. And the price of gasoline, I paid $2.64 here a couple of weeks ago in Michigan. I don't know where it is today. I'm not there. But I'll look when I get home, and we'll talk about it, of course. I'll take a break. When we come back, Kat Kamik, the congresswoman from Florida, is going to join me to talk about another big, important step forward. It's all coming up on The Steve Gruber Show. All right, I want to read you a quote here from my next guest because I think it is so spot on. For too long, Washington has allowed billions of taxpayer dollars to flow to programs that haven't been reviewed or reauthorized in years, sometimes decades. The USA Act, which, by the way, stands for Unauthorized Spending Accountability Act, restores accountability by forcing Congress to do its job, examine these programs every 3 years, determine whether they are effective, and ensure that federal funds are being used responsibly. This is a common sense, necessary step to rein in wasteful spending and return real oversight to the American people. Well, the good news is the USA Act has been passed out of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. And it was written by Kat Cammack, my next guest, Congresswoman from Florida 3. Kat, good to have you back on the program.
Absolutely. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
You know, I don't know any, well, I take that back. I was going to say, I don't know anybody that would disagree with that comment that Washington has allowed billions of taxpayer dollars to flow to programs year after year without reauthorization. But there might be some people, because they're getting rich off it, at my expense, at your expense, at the expense of American taxpayers. This is a really important bill you've gotten through, at least through committee.
Yeah, and we're really proud of the progress that we've made thus far, but it's still got a long way to go. And to your point, Steve, I mean, you would never think that someone would be in disagreement that, hey, maybe we should be auditing these programs. Maybe the committees of jurisdiction should be authorizing and doing their job so that, you know, people will feel confident about the money that's being appropriated to all these agencies and programs. But what we have found is that nearly 50%, 49.77% to be accurate, of all of the agencies and programs that the federal government spends money on have expired authorizations or were never authorized by Congress in the first place. And that's pretty staggering when you think about it. It's like, exactly, it's like, holy crap, what are you guys doing up there in Washington? And that has been the frustration, is when you're living under the continual round robin of continuing resolutions and omnibuses and cromnibuses, you're just rubber stamping spending, and no one's actually going through and being like, hey, this program from 1983, that was designed for that 1 year and we've been funding it ever since. Where's that money going? Nobody's talking about that. And so that's what this bill addresses. It basically says, hey, Congress, you got to do your job. Committees of jurisdiction, you have to sit down and you need to line by line audit these programs and these agencies and actually say, yep, this is a good thing, we're going to put money towards it, rather than just sitting back and letting the appropriators rubber stamp spending for programs and agencies that were created by executive order in many cases. And that's what's so crazy to me, is we're dealing with this now.
I thought executive orders couldn't create spending. I thought it always had to be Congress. You said some of these were not authorized at all. That's the part that caught my attention. Not authorized at all, and yet we continue to fund these projects, whatever they may be and wherever the money may be going, and it doesn't seem that we have a good handle on that. How could we get to that point in the first place?
Well, I mean, a great example is the EPA. That was created by executive order. It was never authorized by Congress. And that was one of the things that, you know, kind of keyed me in on this was, wait a minute. This can't be the only one. Once you find one example, you start digging, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. And so when you sit back and you think about it, you're like, okay, how much could this realistically be, you know? $892 billion is what we, the taxpayers, are going to shell out for programs that have not been authorized by Congress. And most of these expirations of programs or agencies that have received an original authorization, their repeated audit has expired over 20 years ago. So for 20 years, we've just been going forward.
$892 billion. Yeah, $892 billion plus interest, because we borrow money to make those payments. And so it's really probably over $1 trillion when you add the interest on top of it, isn't it?
Yep, 1,000%. And as we all know, the interest on our debt, our $38 trillion national debt, that has outpaced what we spend on defense. So this is a big step in really righting the ship and cutting spending. And really, this is the way that you can doge government in the most effective way, through Congress.
Agreed. I want to shift gears a little bit. I got a couple of minutes left here. Kat Cammack with me from Florida.
Yeah.
You're calling on the Treasury to protect the United States medical innovation and products from Chinese IP theft. We know they do this every single day. We bring in hundreds of thousands of Chinese students, among others, and you're trying to get the Chinese theft of our medical progress stopped. How do you do that?
Well, they have a litany of creative ways in which they are undermining American innovation, stealing our IP, et cetera, right? And this is an example we saw with medical devices where they being the Chinese, they will, through some of their Hong Kong subsidiaries, they'll invest into startups here in the United States. And then what they'll do is they will block American investment. And then they effectively say, okay, because we can block that investment, we're then going to bleed the company dry. And they block out the investment necessary to keep the growth going. And then once the company is basically defunct, they steal the technology and take it back to mainland China. This is a scenario that I've seen repeated over and over and over again. And CFIUS, which is responsible for keeping an eye on all this, really has been behind the eight ball. And so we're just, again, bringing attention to this because when you have your largest foreign adversary continually finding creative ways to undermine American innovation and development, and there's real impacts. There's American jobs at stake here, but more broadly, this is technology that is keeping our economy going, but it's also saving lives. And at every turn, we're seeing where the Chinese are looking to undermine American interests.
Everywhere you look. Everywhere you look every day. Kat Kemick, always appreciate you giving us an update on what you're working on, and congratulations on the USA Act. I think that's an important step forward. Hopefully we can get it through the Senate if they can get their act together.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it, Steve. Have a great day.
You too. There you go. If they can get their act together, that's always the question. I'll take a break and be back. It is the Steve Gruber Show. As I'm here in Washington, D.C., obviously you see the National Guard on the streets. I saw it yesterday, and again, more of the same. Just groups of 3 or 4 walking down the street, interacting with people, very pleasant, no tension. Some just walking by themselves, not saying much to anybody else. And as a result, Washington, D.C. has become much safer since early August. The number of murders have plummeted to a 40-year low. Carjacking is down 75%, sexual assault down 35%. There is no question that it has worked, which brings me back to the connections of the Afghan shooter who attacked and murdered one National Guard member, left another bedridden in critical condition. Don't know if he will survive yet or not, as he remains hospitalized and will for some time to come. But the shooter, Ramanullah Lakhanwal, was connected to a group, Tablighi, setting alarm bells for his family. Lakhanwal's older brother, Ismail Kosti. In Afghanistan, surnames may vary among family members as they choose different tribal and geographical locations, and they're from the Khost province. Tablighi is an Arabic word that means to inform or convey and refers today to Tablighi Jamaat, a global Islamic missionary movement established in 1926. It's a radical Islamic movement. And so when he left the state of Washington, armed and dangerous, and headed to the nation's capital to commit murder, he was in touch with this radical group that is connected to the Muslim Brotherhood and others that have radicalized Muslim residents and non-residents here in the United States. So the investigation by the FBI is digging deep into this to possible ties with this, well, this shadow group of radical Islamists. They're in the shadows here. How did this happen? Well, we allowed it to happen. We left our borders open. We didn't vet people properly. We flew in Afghans by the hundreds of thousands. We're going to have more trouble with this. This is not the last. Sadly, it might be the beginning, but there's your update. I'll take a break and be right back. It is The Steve Gruber Show. Well, as you know, I was in the room, the Roosevelt room here a couple of days ago when Michael Dell said he and his foundation, along with his wife, were giving $6.25 billion to seed the Trump accounts. 25 million kids, 10 and under, will get $250 in zip codes where the median income is $150,000 or lower. And they're inviting all sorts of other philanthropists to join and put money into the pot to help get kids started. And this goes along with what Donald Trump put together, which was a $1,000 check for kids 2 years and under to start their lives. John Hartley is an economist and policy fellow at the Hoover Institute. He joins me now. John, good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Senator Ted Cruz was there. He said if you took the $250 and you maxed out it's basically a 401k for kids, these Trump accounts, and you can put up to $5,000 a year into the account. If you did that, and you get that from an aunt, an uncle, a friend, doesn't matter, wherever the money comes from, could be your parents, whatever. By the time that child is 18 and you cannot spend the money until you're 18, that account could be worth $175,000. If you did that until you were 35, it'd be worth $750,000. I mean, this is really potentially a game-changing idea, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's important for a few reasons. I mean, one, there was no mechanism to give money voluntarily to all of America's children. One, I think it's just a useful development in state capacity to help younger Americans who face high housing costs. Older generations right now don't want to loosen zoning rules to grow the housing supply and make housing more affordable. They also don't want to reform entitlements. It's tough being young in America. So one, I think this is a mechanism to help younger Americans in a very direct way, in a very broad way as well. The second thing is, and this is in the words of Secretary Bessent, it's also sort of a mechanism to privatize Social Security in a sense that these are very similar to IRAs or 401ks, as you mentioned. And it's a massive opportunity for young people to start saving. I mean, you think about it, one challenge right now in America is that 38% of Americans don't own any stocks, either directly or through pensions. And so this is sort of a way to enable more Americans to participate in that big upside. It's a huge problem that many Americans don't own stocks right now. So if we can get younger people investing in stocks, it's great from a perspective of helping them from a retirement perspective. It makes reforming entitlements in the future easier. And on top of that, you're also teaching people about capitalism and perhaps preventing them from falling down the path of socialism. And you see how many young people, for example, were just voting for Zoran Mandani, socialist in New York, who's going to be New York's next mayor. Yes, it's true. The program does cost a few $1 billion a year, but I think it's a wager. I think that's worth making, and I think it's a very interesting development.
Yeah, I want to go back to Secretary Bessent for a moment here, because something else he talked about on Wednesday in the Roosevelt Room, I guess it was Tuesday, was financial literacy. He said, we have got to teach kids about money. And so when they have these accounts, they'll look at the stock market and say, hey, I've got a stake in this, and I've got a stake in this. There is no financial literacy in America, John. People are completely ignorant about money. And I'm talking about adults. We don't teach kids anything about money of value when they're in elementary or middle or high school. And so it's important that we explain money and the free market system to kids so they understand, so that we don't end up with a generation of socialists that we've allowed to happen because we didn't teach them properly. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. And I would also add teaching history too. I was born on November 11th, 1989. I was born the day that the Berlin Wall was falling. And essentially all those who were born after me have no memory of what the USSR was, what a socialist state like the USSR and its failure and what it produced. So I think at some level, we have to get, as you mentioned, and as Secretary Bessent mentioned, have to get back teaching financial literacy and teaching history. Good American history and world history, and teaching people about failed experiments in socialism and how free market capitalism has helped and markets have helped in bringing billions of people out of poverty. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have no government or when we see limited government, it doesn't mean no government. We need safety nets. And we do need to help people who are in need, who can't help themselves. That's a real issue, and perhaps an issue that conservatives need to speak better to. But we also can't fail children, fail young people in not teaching them about history, not teaching them about how markets work. It's so important, and teaching young people how to save, how to invest in equity index accounts, and how there's a certain magic that goes with compounding and how they can benefit from that in the long run. I think it's such an important lesson. Just simple investing, putting a little bit of money away in index ETFs or mutual funds, just makes such a massive difference in people's lives. And it's not a secret. It's just 38% of Americans, again, don't own any stocks, either directly or through pensions. And we need, for future generations, and for those who still have time, we need to teach them these lessons for sure.
We sure do. The economy seems to be on the upswing with gas prices at lows we haven't seen in a very long time. Some stations across the South below $2 a gallon today, which is remarkable. We see the market went way up yesterday. Cafe standards being addressed by the president, which will help the auto industry. All these things are very helpful. And the big, beautiful bill, because it was packaged so large, so much was in there, a lot of people don't realize the benefits they're going to get, like big tax refunds at the beginning of next year, because no tax on tips, for example, took effect on early January. So people are going to get big refunds. They didn't even realize the money's going to be better. I think that the economy's on the upswing, and I hope that these young people can embrace the idea that this gives them a leg up. I'll give you the last word.
Absolutely. And I mean, we're seeing a massive amount of economic growth in America right now. In the second quarter of this year, 3.8% real GDP growth. The Atlanta Fed GDP Now tracker predicts something around 4%. And as you mentioned, this is even before a lot of the One Big Beautiful Bill effects take place. And there's a lot of very pro-growth components to that bill. You're making permanent expensing or making full expensing for firms permanent. So that means that you can write off any sort of expenditures on buildings, capital equipment. So it means more property, plant, and equipment spending on the part of firms, which means more jobs and also higher wages. And so that's just beginning to come online. I think the business tax reform is so substantial and so important, and I think that's going to continue to incentivize all the growth that's going on, and that has many wonderful effects for American workers. And on top of that, we're living in a massive generative AI boom that's happening right now. And I think it's a very unique time, and it benefits a lot of people, not just those in tech, those building data centers, those in the energy pipeline. So I think a lot of Americans can look at the economy right now and see a lot of opportunity.
John Hartley from the Hoover Institute, an economist there. Thank you for joining us, John.
Thanks so much for having me.
Really appreciate it. And then, of course, Donald Trump says that he'd like to see income tax go away. He says it won't happen overnight, but he'd like to see him go away altogether. Think what that would do. Don't forget, you can always listen live, stevegruber.com. You can also watch live on YouTube. Follow on the streaming on X. We've got so many options for you. Never have to miss a moment of these programs that we work so hard to put together for you every day. And coming up, the best part of the show. All right, like I said, the best part of the program is when Ivy shows up. She makes the whole show look better. I mean, right? Here she is. Good morning, Ivy.
Good morning. I try to do my best.
What? No cats today? No cats taking over the show?
I hope not. I kicked one out, and the other one's not here, thankfully. So
What's on your mind today?
Read a headline today. 9 in 10 college students think words can be violence.
Oh, come on.
A majority of undergraduate students believe in the concept that words can be violence, with 47% agreeing strongly with this statement. There's an increasing ideological divide on campus, with moderate and conservative students becoming more accepting of controversial speakers, while liberal students show greater opposition. This is from the College Fix. And I just find it, whatever happened to sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I don't even think you hear that being said anymore, but maybe we should bring that back. What do you think?
I think we should. As Sister Sarah says, we should bring back bullying.
Yeah.
Words are not violence. Getting punched in the mouth, that's violence.
Absolutely.
What you say with your mouth is not violence. I mean, that's pretty simple stuff. But we've raised a bunch of wimps. We've coddled them into being wimps. They expect everything all the time. Nobody can hurt their feelings. Nobody can say anything. And that's a terrible place to be. Look, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution is the greatest, most sacred thing in this country. And to be able to speak and say as I please is the most important thing to me, and to pursue my God the way that I want to pursue my God, and to gather and to redress the government for grievances, all of that. It is the enemy of the world, and these kids are too ignorant to understand it because we don't teach them well.
I don't actually think that it is only young people. I think older people are, and actually I found this, if you can put that screenshot up, Anthony, this woman, Claire, who seems to be an older woman. I went and did a little trying to figure out who she is. But here's what she said. Just so you all understand, when someone tells you Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays, what they really mean is their God is more important than your freedom of religion. And you go down under the under the comments.
Oh, my Lord.
And this woman, there's this woman who says, no, it means their God is just more important to them. You're free to say it back or not. And Claire comes back and says, you understand how consent works, right? It's a verbal rape.
Oh, please.
I mean, come on.
I think we should say it more. Merry Christmas,
well,
everybody.
Then that's her whole feed filled with Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, because, I mean, unbelievable.
Who is this person? Somebody we know?
It is a woman. Her name is Claire Foster. She says Claire Foster, PhD. She has some like 65,000 followers on X. I don't know. Again, I don't think this is probably something that she only believes. I think this is probably something that a lot of white liberal women think. But unless you can really dig down and know who this person is, again, I'm always worried about, is this a bot? Is this some, factory of people putting out things just to create, conditions where people just argue?
Well, you point out it's not just young people. Claire Foster here, clearly not a young person. I just looked her up real quick. And you're right. And she got almost 300,000 responses, didn't she?
She did. Yeah. She did. And so I want you to listen to this, because this is Senator Mark Warren, Anthony. I want you to listen to this soundbite, because if words are violence, what do you make of this?
Is this Besant or Warner?
Warner.
Unprecedented disrespect when they were all brought to get a pep rally in front of Hegseth and Trump. This is an administration that's fired, uniform generals from the head of the NSA, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And I think in many ways, the uniform military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth, because I think their commitment is to the Constitution and obviously not to Trump, and I expect Bradley to adhere to that.
So we can come back to this. Did you hear what he said there?
Yeah. Yeah, the
and
undermining
this is just the same as what Mark Kelly and Elisa Slotkin senator from Michigan, are saying they are creating this environment that it's okay for you to talking about radicalize. You know that these people are radical. You're saying for the military to take over the government, the one that was elected by the people of this country.
And here's the thing. Their government shutdown failed. Their economics failed. Their open border failed. Everything they did failed. They were hoping that Epstein would provide something. It failed. And so now they want Pete Hegseth's head on a platter again, because it's not just that. It's Signalgate is reared its ugly head again. Oh, Pete Hegseth, was on his app and therefore put American security at risk. Not true. They hate Pete Hegseth. They hate Pete Hegseth almost as much as they hate Donald Trump, because he's upending everything.
And by the
he's
way,
taking away their free lunch.
I find this funny, but that Claire woman that I had mentioned earlier, I would have put the screenshot. When you go to her profile, it says anti-extremist. If you actually pull up her, name and look at her profile, anti-extremist, and with this, with Senator Mark Warner there in that soundbite, that to me is extreme. To when you try to tell people to do those things, that's extremist, not what Donald Trump is doing, not what Pete Hegseth is doing. What you're saying, that's extreme. So unbelievable.
No, there's no question. Greatly appreciate you calling her out for that.
Absolutely.
Apparently, I follow Claire. I'm good. I follow Claire now. Who posts their IQ on their site, by the way? She has an IQ of 169, she claims.
Oh.
Yeah. Who does that? Unless you're really insecure. My IQ, I'm superior to you. My IQ is 169. Good luck with that, Claire. Ivy, love you.
I love you, Steve.
Yeah, I'm going to go post my IQ on my site. 2 bazillion. Anyhow, I'll take a break and be right back. All right, back to it now as we bring the show to a conclusion. Apparently, Anthony has a question for me. Anthony?
Well, Steve, I've got if you look at the screen, I've got this huge, cool scene I built out, but I haven't heard you too much speak on the matter. Can you see that?
You know why it's not here? It has to be here. It has to be right here on this sheet, or I forget. Anyhow, Steve Gruber merchandise, he's right. You can click on the QR code right there. You can get great stuff, right? Not the suit jacket, not the shirt, not the glasses, but you can get the great shirt, the coffee mug, and all sorts of other stuff. We got hoodies and sports shirts, T-shirts, the coffee mug, of course, with 1775 coffee in it, which is great. 1775coffee.com. Promo code Gruber, save a little bit of money. Well done, Anthony. Way to bring that to my attention. Which one did you buy?
Well, I think I've got a coffee cup. I'd like a hoodie.
Well, what do you mean you didn't buy?
Not yet.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there.
Oh, I'm sure you'll come up with some free stuff. You usually do. You usually do pretty well for yourself. Yeah, there you go. QR code. Make sure you click on that. Gruber merch. You guys were asking for it for a while. Well, there it is for all of you faithful followers of the program. We got like 100 people that jumped on it when I mentioned it the first time. But you're right. It's been a week. I forgot. So we need to do this more. We need to do it for our national TV audience as well. And we will, because, gosh darn it, people deserve Gruber gear. Don't they? Don't they, Anthony? Don't they deserve Gruber gear under the tree?
They do. And one lucky person should get a cool gift basket, a cool a giveaway.
Yeah. Where's Sister Sarah? She's in charge of that. The Christmas, and it's not a holiday gift basket. It's a Christmas gift basket. We're going to put it together with a hat and a shirt. I guess we don't have hats, but shirts and mugs. You know why? We didn't like the hats we got yet. We're not going to sell you some garbage hat. We want a good hat for you. Thank you, Anthony.
Still got to do the
Fight the good
watch,
fight.
I'm telling you.
What's that?
You still have to do the Ivy Watch. I'm telling you.
The Ivy Watch. Fight the good fight. Keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show. Work harder. Be better.